Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3995, probably 95. Yeah. Today's date is 12, no, 11th of April 2025, 26, sorry, 11th of April 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 8:10 a.m. Oh, my battery is less than 20%. Okay, battery saver on. Okay, so I have very less amount of battery, but probably it might gonna record very much. Okay. All right. So should we start? Let's start recording. Okay. Yeah. So question is, how often do I reflect back what someone said to show understanding? Okay. First of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? Couple of days ago, I read a book, How to Win and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was a really amazing book. Highly recommend to you to read this book. I wanted to implement the value that book taught me. How do I supposed to do that? By asking question to myself and giving the honest answer. So I went to ChatGPT, kind of like I said that yeah, I read this book. I wanted to implement the value. Suggest me 20 question. So ChatGPT kind of like suggest me those 20 question. By the way, those all our question are actually in the mobile phone, and while recording, I can't do any fiddling things at all. So that's why I wrote the question in here. Okay, this is the question. Now this is a kind of like a new book that I'm reading right now. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Really amazing book. Highly recommend to you to read this book. Alright, yeah. So regarding about this question, the question says that how often do I reflect back what someone said to show understanding? What exactly is this question? Okay. So basically it sounded like a little bit of complicated, but specifically this question are for a kind of like things that na ki like building a relationship. Like I don't know how much it is really essential to do better communicate. Okay, yeah. Like let me tell you one thing. If you want to succeed in your life, in your career, in your relationship, in everything, there is a one thing that I recommend to you to fix that thing, and that is called communication. How do you communicate with other define how much you succeed in your life, how good you will get relationship in your life depends on communication. Okay, the better you communicate, the more you succeed and more and things and that and that. I know hard work matter. It's like basically hard work is a kind of like a somewhat something really essential. It's not really that okay, you are kind of like a eliminate, but communication is also as well as important. Like basically this is na, let's just say you want like a, this is the succeed. Okay, like a, this is the kind of like somebody succeed that you want to achieve. Most of the people think that na ki when you wanted to achieve success, you have to put hard work. So this is entire hard work, but that is not. Okay, that is definitely not. Okay, yeah. Everyone is kind of like a putting hard work. A kind of like a something boy who is a kind of like a doing a job as a watchman, or a CEO of the company who is kind of like a putting the same effort every single day. Okay, and everyone thinks that he is kind of like putting a lot of effort, lot of things and that and that. But very less people are achieve success. Why? Is because of it's not depend fully on hard work. It depends on so many factors that we have to understand. Hard work, yeah, it is essential, but there are so many factors too. Communication is a kind of like a somewhat something matter, very really much matter. How do you kind of like a somebody communicate with other defines how kind of like a you will get succeed. But is this thing na ki most of the people thinks that ki communication means what ki talk. Okay, yeah. And in specifically in India, usually communication means talk in English. That's it. But I think that that's a completely wrong statement. Okay, yeah. Language is never been a barrier. Language is just kind of like a somebody let other people understand. I know English is a kind of like a somewhat something a global language, and it's a kind of like a somebody really essential to influence your thought process or influence your personality. English is kind of like a matter, that is true, yeah. But learning English and not improving your communication, that is completely wrong. English is a language, is not a communication. Okay, yeah. Communication is comes from inside of you, and it tell your personality, how you see the world and how you look the world and things and that and that. There are so many birds and they are just yelling or things. I always kind of like admire that those are tiny birds are kind of like creating that much sound. Like it was too much. Like literally is this thing. Okay, let me tell you one thing now. The birds are this. Okay, like this size. Okay, yeah. If you're kind of like compare, even more smaller birds are smaller birds too. Okay, yeah. But they are kind of like creating so big noise that boy, like how does that kind of like a animal could create that amount of big sound. Okay, but then I realized that now the bigger the animal, less it sound. Okay, and the tinier the animal, more it sound, according to the size ratio. I'm not really sure about that, but I don't know, birds are kind of like a whatever. Okay, so like these birds are not sure of. Oh, just fuck off, dude. like like it's kind of like disturbing me a lot. Okay, yeah. Just do not listen on that. Okay, so communication, how do you supposed to be kind of like improve your communication? How do you supposed to make your communication as much as better and things and that? What are kind of like a factor are responsible for making good communication? uh, English matter, yeah. I'm not saying that ki English is not matter. Specifically in India, English is really matter. Okay, yeah. But with the English too, you have to focus on communication too. English is a language, is not a communication skill. Communication skill is a different subject. Okay, yeah. You want to speak English as much as you can. Okay, but if you want to build a communication, then focus on couple of things. Communication is not just talking. Communication means like that listening to. Okay, yeah. Like how good you are listening is define how good is your communication. Let me tell you one thing. How good is your listening define how good is your communication. You might thinking that ki how good you talking, you might do really good communication. That is completely wrong. If you are just talking in English, you are not really good communicator. Okay, you have to be listen. Okay, listening is a kind of like one of the really essential part of the communication. Understand what does other people say and kind of like implement according to it. Okay, but how do I supposed to do that? What exactly is this thing? Okay, so let's just say is this thing na ki this kind of like a technique that you have to use in front of couple of people. Oh yeah, not everyone, by the way. Okay, not everyone means what? Like basically, let me tell you one thing now. Like you wanted to implement this technique in everyone. It's not really that it might gonna add so much amount of value, but still it kind of like a something is in a okay. It's completely depend on you. Completely depend on situation, surrounding, and things and that. Okay. So let me kind of like give you scenario so that you might gonna understand. Let me tell you one thing. So you are fall in love with a girl. Okay, you really like this girl. Okay, and you are kind of like in relationship. You are started talking and things and that. So in that moment, obviously you love her. That's why you have interest on her, and you are kind of like started listening what she was kind of like say and things and that and that. Why? Because of that you love her and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. But throughout the time, let's just say after a kind of like a 4 5 year or 10 year, that interest is fade away. Okay, yeah. And when that interest fade away, you are not really good understanding, you are not kind of like a listening. Example, um, look at your parents. Okay, let's take my parents too. Okay, yeah. My parents are always yelling at each other, always. Why? Because they think that their communication means yelling at each other or criticizing each other. That's it. But why is that? Because of that, ki, like basically it's this thing na, ki if they love each other, they are try to kind of like replicate that love in criticism. Okay, yeah. Like basically, have you ever kind of like experience? Probably, I'm from Indian context. I'm telling this thing from Indian point of context perspective. I'm not really sure about US and Europe people. Okay, yeah. In India, usually father always kind of like criticize that ki there is a less salt in the sabzi, like a namak nahi dala. Okay, even if the namak is always been there, it's not really that ki namak nahi hai, namak kam dala ya namak zyada dala. It's a kind of like somebody always father kind of like a criticize mother's kind of like a food and things and that and that. Now why, like the salt is never been the problem, salt is always been there, but why does kind of like a father or typical every Indian father kind of like said this thing that ki namak nahi dala and things and that is because of that ki they are kind of like a showing love to her wife. Okay, yeah. And how they do that? By doing the criticism. Okay, yeah. But why they are not kind of like a showing the love directly? Well, that's the kind of like a somebody is this thing na ki like basically is this thing, when you are try to tell I love you, it really required effort. It really required effort, like a telling her good word, like how good you are, how beautiful you are, how amazing and things and that. It really required effort to say. Okay, yeah. But criticism is a kind of like somebody very does not really require any kind of like effort. Okay, yeah. And you can criticize anywhere. Okay, yeah. But you cannot say I love you in front of everywhere or in front of everyone. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a two different thing. Okay, yeah. Most of the people kind of like choose a criticism to represent love. Okay, yeah. And is that bad? Well, probably is this thing now when the like parents or father and mother understand what is actually criticism and what is actually love. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing that ki if father criticize namak kam hai and mother is kind of like a said this thing that ki mother, like basically mother kind of like a said this thing ki like a something yelling at things and that, so it create an chaos. So basically father tell that ki namak kam hai from love point of perspective, but mother didn't really understand, so that mother is kind of like started yelling at father and things and that, so it just not work that equation. Okay, yeah. But what if kind of like a mother understand, then this equation work properly. But that is a kind of like a very wrong. Why does mother should supposed to be always understand what does father says? Okay, yeah. Why not father kind of like a tell her exactly what he was kind of like a feeling? Okay, yeah. This is what kind of like a really required effort, because showing compassion really required effort to say. And that's why in relationship most of the kind of like couples are kind of like yelling at each other. I'm telling about average point of perspective, I'm not saying that everyone, but most of the times they are kind of like somebody criticizing each other, things and that. So basically this thing na ki that is wrong. Okay, yeah. Because in the beginning you really love that particular person, you are started understanding things, you are showing the compassion and things and that at the beginning. But throughout the time, after 10-20 year, that interest gone, that attraction gone, and suddenly you just kind of like somebody have just like empty words and things. And also is this thing na love is a kind of like a things, it fade away throughout the time. Okay, yeah. So basically, how should you supposed to be kind of like a build your relationship so that it will kind of like last longer? Talk, communicate. Oh yeah, like basically is this thing now, before wedding you are talking to each other on the phone day and night. Why? Because of that key less of supply, that means more of demand. What exactly is this thing? I already mentioned in previous artifact episode, but still, okay, yeah. You love this particular girl, okay, yeah, but you haven't married. So basically is this thing that exposure of that girl is very less, so that is called little less supply. Okay, yeah. So when you have little less supply means little less exposure of the girl you like, then more demand that you have with you with her too, because she also kind of like a simply seeing you less, because you haven't really get married or things and that. But since you married, she's always with you 24 time 24/7, so supply is always there, supply has always been there. Okay, yeah. So when the supply is too much, demand is less. Simple natural formula it is. Okay, yeah. When the supply is too much, demand is less. Okay, yeah. So that's why she's kind of like a there. So interest is gone, the love is gone, is because of she's always been there with you. Okay, yeah. So what should you supposed to do? Should you not married with her, or should you kick her out, or what should you supposed to do? Okay, yeah. No, it's not that. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you one thing how is actually happening. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing, the supply is kind of like a too much, and that's why demand is kind of like a happen little less. Okay, yeah. And it is very much obvious. Okay, yeah. But let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah. Even if the supply is too much and you are not really focused on things, like let me tell you one thing now, I am not a relationship expert, I am not a kind of like I haven't been on relationship, I don't know anything about relationship, but I'm kind of like giving the opinion regarding about just my instinct. And yeah, I am not really sure is this kind of like somebody's suggestion that you should supposed to follow or not, I don't know, but I will gonna do this. Okay, yeah. When I will gonna married with any kind of like a person or things and that. Okay, so let's just say is this thing that you married with this the girl that you like. Okay, yeah. So basically tell her something really nice word, like you look really beautiful when at some certain occasion she's kind of like wearing something that she's really beautiful, then accomplishment that you look something really beautiful. Like how tiny words can change something, and not just kind of like a try to like a exaggerated or kind of like a in front of everyone. No, just personal private or things like that, like like close to her and kind of like you look beautiful. Okay, one thing. Okay, just very small thing. Okay, yeah. Another thing, okay, is that like take her photo. Okay, like I don't know, but is this thing na ki women are always been kind of like a things that na ki they always like to look good, and that's their identity. Okay, like basically is this thing for men, earning more money is a kind of like a getting more credibility and things and that. But for woman point of perspective, looking good is kind of like a important for them. Okay, yeah. Money is also essential, but looking good. Okay, yeah. And women always try to look good, even if the kind of like somebody 80-year-old kind of like a grandmother is also kind of like a trying to look good. Okay, yeah. Because that's a kind of like a women are kind of like evolved through time and things and that. Her credibility is actually defined by how does she look good, and because of this thing kind of like a evolution kind of like a generation pass through, and every woman wants to look good. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing na ki like your girlfriend or your wife kind of like a somebody kind of like a wear something really good beautiful kind of like a dress and things and that said you look beautiful, or else okay, if you think that that is very hard to foresee because of that key, like let me tell you one thing, it is really effort, you need to put effort to, you really require to put the effort to kind of like said this thing. Even if kind of like I said you look beautiful, it is very hard, literally it's very hard. Okay, like basically you are kind of like a been married for almost like a 20 year, and you are kind of like a saying you are really beautiful, it's very difficult to say. Okay, so if you are not able to do this thing, take the photo. Okay, yeah, take a photo, like basically is this saying that she's kind of like a wearing something. Okay, you have your photo, like just उभी राहा अशी, मी एक फोटो काढतो. And just take a photo and kind of like simply show it to her and say admire that, like you look really beautiful. Okay, yeah, not just wait, just do not say directly to her, but from photo. Okay, yeah, so that she will kind of like get something that he smirk about you. She's married with you, she's love you, that's why she's married with you, and she's kind of like with you for almost like a 10-20 year. Okay, yeah, and obviously she wants a kind of like a little bit exposure from you. So if you do this thing na, you just add a little bit value in your relationship. This is the step one. Okay, yeah. Step two, okay, is the thing that he communicate more. Okay, yeah, when you crack the level 1, level 2. Okay, level 2 is that he communicate more. Now I am kind of like giving this suggestion or advice to the kind of like a married people. Okay, yeah, or they are going to be married and things and that. And let me tell you one thing na, these are kind of like a steps as a male should supposed to do that. From female point of perspective na, it's like it is like it might kind of like look really effort, but still is this thing na ki you should supposed to be execute these tasks for male point of perspective. I don't know, I might be gonna wrong, but this is what I realize. Okay, like basically is this thing, if you wanted to propose, obviously male should supposed to be initiate. Okay, yeah, whatever. So basically is this thing, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that na ki communicate. How do you communicate? Okay, yeah, you are been married for almost like a 10 year. Okay, yeah, you know her, she was your girlfriend, things and that, you have kids too. Okay, yeah, so what do you communicate? Do not communicate a kind of like a regular stuff, like a where do I put my kids into which school and that. No, do not communicate regarding about responsibility. Talk about something that you are being close to each other. What exactly is this thing? Okay, I am not a relationship expert, I don't know, I haven't really been in a relationship. So kind of like somebody, this is just my opinion, this is I would gonna do. I'm not really sure would you do it, nor it's completely depend on you, and I am not kind of like giving the suggestion according to the, like I am not an expert, I am completely kind of like giving you disclaimer regarding about that. Okay, I would gonna do regarding about when the situation came. Okay, so basically is the same. If I crack the level 1, okay, like how beautiful you are and things like that. Level 2, communicate. How? Let's just say you open the ChatGPT, kind of like said this thing that ki I I wanted to talk, I wanted to communicate with my wife, I wanted to build the relationship, we've been married for almost like a 10 year, and what do I supposed to be talk? I wanted to improve the relationship and things and that. Okay, yeah, so suggest me 100 question. ChatGPT kind of like suggest you 100 question. Okay, yeah, and like basically is this thing na ki just ask this question to her. Okay, yeah, you, like also is this thing na ki also tell her that ki you also do the same thing. Like basically is this thing that ki she has a kind of a question, do the ChatGPT kind of like a things like a 100 question talk to a kind of like a husband and things and that and talk those 100 question, give the answer to each other. It gives you reason to talk. It's not the kind of like a things that ki it will communicate. Okay, basically sometimes you talk about something and you are kind of like somebody is this thing talking about something, but that is essential because these are the question are the reason to communicate, and that is essential. Okay, just ask this question, it automatically build relationship. Talk is really good thing. Okay, but how good your communication is not depend upon talk too. Sometimes it depend upon how you talk. Okay, yeah. Communication does not depends on just talking. Sometimes depends upon, most of the time depends upon listening and listen. Okay, yeah. Now understand, we do not listen other people because of some sort of reason. So if you are not listening your wife, is not because of what she's talking, is because of what kind of like an image that build up throughout the entire year of life. Like basically let me tell you one thing. Okay, you knew this girl, she is kind of like your wife, you've been kind of like with her kind of like a 10 year and things and that. Okay, now you know her everywhere, like you know her regarding about what she thinks, that. Okay, Now throughout this 10 year, you already created the image about her. Okay, image about her and things and that. Okay, yeah. And basically is this thing, when you try to create the image about her, you are not expecting that she's kind of like really good at something. Like basically is this thing na ki, let's just say a particular topic that my girlfriend is not really good at management. Okay, yeah, like money management or things and that. Now you already knew her, you already knew because of that ki you've been with her for almost like a 10 year and things and that. Okay, so basically is this thing na ki when the question is actually about the money and things and that and when she was kind of like saying this and that, do not barge in or do not kind of like interrupt in the moment. Okay, because usually is this thing, only when we interrupt is because of that ki we don't want to listen. One thing, another thing is that ki we don't believe what she was kind of like listening. Let's just say your wife is a kind of like a spending a lot of amount of money in shopping. Okay, yeah, and the question is actually about that how should you supposed to be save money and things and that. Now she's kind of like giving the option things and that, and you already knew her that she's not kind of like somebody spending a lot of amount of money in shopping and things and that, and now she's kind of like talking about financial. So your natural point of perspective is this thing that like you kind of like criticize her that like dude, listen, you are not kind of like when you went to shopping, you kind of like a shop for almost like a day and night, and you are shopping for ultimate, and you buy stuff that you won't really use and things and that, and you are talking about financial stuff. Like basically how is that thing? Okay, yeah, so basically that is called interruption. Okay, because of that you are not kind of like simply listening her value, what she was kind of like said. Okay, yeah, obviously your criticism is always right. Okay, yeah, but you are not listening to her. Okay, yeah, but I think that now do it like this kind of like clumsiness should supposed to be happen in the relationship. Okay, yeah, because sometimes that is like a in the relationship this might be okay, but in professionalism don't. Okay, yeah, professionalism is a kind of like a very different topic we will gonna talk about later, but specifically is this thing that relationship little bit of clumsiness and things and that is kind of like somewhat something really essential. So just talk, okay, communicate and things and that. Okay, now these are all those stuff that I told you regarding about communication point of perspective about relationship. Okay, yeah, but let me tell you one thing, the tactics that you do, the tactics that you implement in relationship will not gonna work in professionalism. Professionalism is different. No, professionalism is and in the professionalism you have to use different tactics. How? Okay, so let's just say you are a kind of like a simply employee of the company. Okay, yeah, and you wanted to grow your career and things and that. So how should you supposed to do that? How should you supposed to utilize your communication to grow your kind of like a simply career and things and that. English, understand, English is really essential. Okay, yeah, like every time I said English is kind of like English is global language, dude. Oh yeah, succeed is depend upon how good is your communication, and English does impact a lot. It creates influence about other people. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing na ki English is matter, dude. Learn to speak English is essential. Okay, yeah, so if you are really good at English, then understand the communication. Now in the professionalism, how should you supposed to do that? In the professionalism, let's just say is this thing, try to learn buttering people. I'm kind of like saying this thing kind of like things. Okay, yeah, how? Okay, buttering people means what? Buttering people means like that ki like logo ki चाटना, but not in the context. Okay, yeah, okay, let me tell you one thing. लोगों की चाटना मतलब क्या होता है? Like I'm telling you from corporate point of perspective. Okay, yeah, because this is what kind of like a somewhat something. Okay, I kind of like something realized very late in my life. Okay, yeah, when I was kind of like doing a job, I was never really think that I thought that my effort is kind of like credible enough to kind of like get my succeed and things and that, but I was wrong. Communication is kind of like a very much matter, and buttering people is also really matter too. Okay, yeah, but how should we supposed to be butter people? Okay, yeah, you are the employee. Okay, yeah, and you wanted to kind of like simply succeed in your professionalism. How? First of all, communicate English. That's the one thing. Okay, yeah. Another thing, butter people. Whoever your senior is that. Okay, yeah. when he pass out, or when he kind of like say good morning sir, just good morning sir, that's it, good morning, good afternoon, that's it. There's the one thing, just show the existence of that you are. Okay, don't be rude, do not kind of like say you are passed through and you just, that's wrong. Okay, say good morning sir, simple interaction, just good morning, that's it. And it doesn't really require any kind of like effort. Good morning, other senior would be kind of like said good morning. Okay, this is the first interaction. Second interaction, okay, yeah, second interaction is that key, obviously this thing you are employee and you will have very less chance to show your talent and skills. Okay, let me tell you one thing, I'm gonna tell you the structure so that you might gonna understand. Okay, so you are the employee, let's just say you are the kind of like a software engineer. Okay, so above you there is a kind of like a team leader or tester or whoever the person, but team leader. Okay, in the team leader there is a manager, in the manager there is a like a then operational researcher and things and that. Okay, now you are the bottom part, you are just an employee. Okay, and if you wanted to succeed, you have to interact with above those people like manager or kind of like things and that. Okay, team leader, yes, but something that now you have to kind of like a butter people, but butter people in a such a way that it does not feel like that ki a kind of like somebody just too much. Okay, like with the professional, with the respect, with dignity, with confidence. Okay, just subtle but not too much and not too less, just subtle. You have to understand that thing, how is that subtle is kind of like a define how good is you. Okay, so just being subtle, not to just balance. Okay, just find a perfect balance. Okay, so how is that? Okay, so let me tell you one thing, you are employee and you are kind of like a work as a kind of like a somebody software engineer, you are kind of like a building a software and things and that. So in that level, okay, you wanted to build the communication, but communication will not gonna add so much amount of value in your life. Why? Because of you are in this position, because you are kind of like somebody define how much effort that you put, that's it. So in this context, build your communication, but it might not gonna work anything at all because you are in the low. Okay, you are in very low position. So in this particular things, you have to utilize this communication, whatever the communication that you use, implement on your team leader. Okay, like team leader said good morning. Okay, like you have to say good morning, hey, good morning sir. Okay, then probably is this thing, try to do small talk. Okay, small talk and things and that and listening, active listen, by the way. Okay, he is a ladder of your career. Okay, so kind of like I said, good morning sir, how is your weekend? Yeah, like I didn't even do anything at all, I was kind of like sitting. Really? Like I thought that you went to kind of like a something like a some sort of concert or what? No, nothing really concert at all. But he just stupid shit and things. I was kind of like a stay home all night and kind of like a playing video game. Oh, so what kind of like a video game? The new video game like Spider-Man 2. Oh, like I love this game, dude. Like really, yeah. So let me tell you one thing now. So when you talk to your kind of like a team leader, okay, start with a kind of like a hello sir and things and that, and do little bit of butter, like not butter, like just kind of like just subtle, and try to be genuine interest, by the way. Do not fake it. If you fake, then they will grab it. Okay, and even if like let's just say your kind of like credibility does not match your team leader, let's just say, dude, I just kind of like a stay home and play video game, and you are not the video game player, so how should you supposed to sir, video game sir, what kind of like a video game that you play? Like he says Spider-Man. Sir, I want to play video game, but it's just like that I don't know anything about video games. So could you recommend me something that which one is game, or which one kind of like PS5 or Xbox, or which one kind of like things? And there's this like, you wanted to buy a kind of like a console. I was thinking, I'm not kind of like a buying, but I was kind of like somebody thinking that buy PS5 would be really good. Okay, and which game would I play? Start from simple, like a basically is this thing, just God of War or things like that. It would be much more better. Okay, so basically what exactly is this thing now? You are talking your team leader, but you are not talking about your professionalism. You are talking about a little bit of personal and things and that. It build connection. Okay, but simultaneously make sure that your work is credible. Means you shouldn't supposed to do fuck up. If you do fuck up, then probably it kind of like a feels like that ki no, it's not right. So basically make sure that ki whatever the effort that you put of building a software, you have to make sure that it should supposed to be kind of like a something as much as right as it possible. Okay, yeah, do not outperform, but like do outperform, yeah. It's not really that, but kind of like a do not mess up. Okay, if you fuck up and you do buttering things, it might not gonna work. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing that na ki you just not to do fuck up. Okay, yeah, team leader will kind of like understand and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now another thing, even if you mess up, let's just say you fuck up the kind of like in your work and things and that. So how should you supposed to say? How should you supposed to do this thing? Hello sir. Good morning sir. Good morning Saurabh. Sir, I am kind of like a really like I don't know. I'm just wanted to apologize that I just did this thing and that's yeah. Like why did you kind of like do that mistake? Sir, I'm kind of like a really nervous and not really understanding and things and that. So that's why I just wanted to apologize and things. I know it bother you a lot, but I wanted to make sure that this stuff would not gonna happen. Apologize, dude. Apologize. When you fuck up, apologize. Okay, yeah. With genuine, by the way. With genuine. Okay, yeah. Things and that. Like when you do a genuine it just kind of like adds something that okay, this particular person is kind of like a try to improve in things and that. Okay, yeah, just slowly do this thing, not too much, just slowly. Okay, and in the communication just listen what other people says and interact with that. Listen what are kind of like a say, like a basically listening. When your senior says he was kind of like a staying all day in home and kind of like a playing video game and things and that, so you interact regarding about which game would you play or kind of like a which console should I supposed to buy. Okay, yeah, so it's a kind of like an interaction. When you do that interaction it's much more beautiful. Sorry, I have almost like a 10% battery left. Oh my god, I might not gonna continue for longer. Okay, but this is the way that you should supposed to do this thing. Now regarding about the question, like basically like all this time I'm just kind of like talking about stuff but not talking about the question. The question is that how often do I reflect back when someone said and something I wanted to understand. So basically same thing is this thing that key reflect back with something that you understand. Okay, yeah, that is really essential. Do not just stay there and just kind of like somebody just like listen but understand. Okay, yeah, let's just say is this thing that talk your like a wife and kind of like I said happy birthday and she says no, I don't really have any birthday. No, I was not like a basically saying that na ki your mother has a kind of like a birthday today and I don't really have her number. So basically is this thing from my point of perspective, from like tell her happy birthday from my view or my like from mine. And she says you remember? Yeah, I do remember. That is called kind of like somebody like a reflect back. Okay, like soon as you kind of like a talk and things, these kind of like a stuff is actually happened, or maybe you kind of like a seen her mother's birthday on her status. So do this thing. In the professionalism, when the senior kind of like I said he just stay in the kind of like somebody all day in kind of like a playing video game, so reflect back what kind of like a game, what kind of a console should I supposed to buy or things and that. Okay, yeah, understand the context and try to do this thing. Okay, yeah, this is what kind of like a communication it might gonna improve your relationship, improve your career too. It takes time, and do not fake it. Okay, yeah, just add just a layer of butter, that's it. But do not fake it. If you fake it, other people understand, dude. Other people are also smart, they know that you are buttering, and since they know you are buttering, how much you will try, they will not gonna convince. They always gonna consider you are a threat and things and that. So just be little, just very tiny. That's the kind of like a things that you have to understand. I will not gonna tell you. You have to understand that balance, how much you apply butter. Okay, yeah. Do not too much, do not too less. Just right. That's it. Start from good morning. And start from taking photo of your partner. Simple thing. Okay. This is it. Thank you.